Howdy of you delicious people. I'm here today to review Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl. So, I'm going to be honest about Pirates of the Caribbean as a whole. Like, there's some interesting visuals that did come from out of this franchise. Like, you can't help but go on and say, okay, like Captain Jack Sparrow is an interesting visual, and it's very iconic, and it does look rather interesting. Having a pirates movie is a interesting thing to put on film, and especially a pirate kind of movie where you can actually root for the pirates. I think that that's actually interesting. But really, for this movie, for this film, I would honestly say that this movie has a story I don't really care about, or really, for this film, I don't feel like this movie has a good enough story. I feel like we're just kind of chucking things in here just to fill content for a film where they obviously knew that people were going to come into this movie in droves because Pirates of the Caribbean ride is really popular in Disneyland or Disney World or Disney whatever. And so really it was like an easy sell for them to just do a film and have it become popular. Really, I can also say that I think they kind of, I feel like the cast of this film feels really cheap. Like, I don't think we ever get any big, lavish A-list, uh, like, I don't feel like they really get a big, massive actor at any points in any of these films. I could be surprised, but I just don't feel that way. Uh, it feels like we're not getting, like, a Sylvester Stallone or Arnold Schwarzenegger coming in one of these films, because why would they? Because they want to frickin' save some money and shave off some dollarinos for this one, because I guess really most of the money is probably coming to the fact that they have to put together a time period piece of a film, and so that's what has to go on to have them save all the money to just put on a time period accurate piece. So, but I just, like, I don't really care for the story of this movie. I don't really like, it's a fun film. I'm sure if you went on and had a family come and watch this film, a lot of people would be like, man, this movie's fun, this movie's entertaining. Like, I can say, yeah, this movie does feel entertaining. It doesn't feel like one of those movies where I'm going and clicking to see how long the movie has been. Like, it feels like I can enjoy the ride of this film, even though I don't feel it's creative enough. And, but hey, like, to each their own for the whole Pirates of the Caribbean thing, to each their own. Um, some people may love this franchise more than anything else. People might go on and say that this is their favorite thing of all Disney stuff. And I can understand that. Like, I just feel like very middle of the road for this film. I feel just really not wanting to say that this movie is great or epic or whatever. I just don't feel like this movie fits that realm of me just going, wow, this movie just blew me away, because it's a movie about boats. It's a movie about a boat. And we're sailing, and we're boring. And we're having a story that has very few settings. Uh, very few. So, without further ado, I just have to say that this Pirates of the Caribbean movie is possibly just okay for me. Like, for me, it's just an okay grading, because I am just really taking a Pirates of the Caribbean movie because I wanted to see how I would really just feel about this movie. If I would go on to just hate it, or all of a sudden I would have a drastic, like, wow, like this movie, why hasn't everybody else been watching them Pirates of the Caribbean lately? Because this movie holds up. I just feel about this movie. It's just So with that said, with that grading system, that's all I can say for Pirates of the Caribbean, Curse of the Black Pearl. I don't know. Maybe I'll go out of my way to watch the other franchise films if it seems like it's a thing that's trending on YouTube. I will gladly go on and watch the rest of the franchise, and otherwise maybe feel like, ooh, like it feels like the sequels get a much more creative story, and I can enjoy it, and I can laugh my whole way through, and it just feels like this movie might have just really just been a bump in the road, so to speak. I don't know. Let me know in the comments below how you feel about Pirates of the Caribbean films. More than likely, a lot of people could probably just go on and say it's like, yeah, I love these movies, and like they're my childhood favorites, and like they're my favorite Disney films, and people might have certain uh, reasoning for why they will strongly disagree with how I feel about these movies. Um, like I just personally had gone on and seen Pirates of the Caribbean 2, and reasonably with that movie, I had gone on and worked at some store where they kept tossing that movie in like non-stop, to the point of me just going on and saying like, you know what, if I could watch any other movie that would be great. I don't know how many times I would come in and have the whole like Kraken scene at the end of the film, and I'm just like, oh my god, if I could just have another movie to watch. Could we just toss in some Star Wars? Could we toss in something else? And they'd be like, well, but the Pirates of the Caribbean thing is like recently coming out, so we got to put that. I'm like, could we just put anything out? And then all of a sudden they went on and just started doing these like promo videos to where I'm like, oh my god, I seriously have to listen to this all day? To where I would basically say the whole speech verbatim of what all like promo crap that they were kind of talking about, to the point where I just wanted to put every single one of these promo package things on mute, because like it wasn't fair for me to have to go do an 8-hour shift roughly in that department and have to just hear this thing go off over and over and over again about something that they're selling and whatever. I'm like, can I just mute? Ugh. So, with that said, let's just go into that double 5-time territory. Let's just go into it. Let's just go into spoilers about this film. Spoiler time, spoiler time. It's about the time again to spoil this movie. So, really just start this movie off really uh, with, of course, Elizabeth Swann going on and singing a pirate song. And we, of course, have one of the people on. I'm thinking that this is the Interceptor, to be where the people are to be on the ship. So we, of course, have Gibbs, who is going on and saying that Elizabeth should not be singing a pirate song because it's not good luck, or it's bad luck. And that also a girl being on the ship is also bad luck. It's like, okay, what are the other bad luck, good luck rules for being on a ship? So, all of a sudden, we of course have Norrington realize that it seems that there is to be a sunken ship nearby, and all of a sudden they are to have Elizabeth notice that there is to be a boy kind of floating along, who of course is a young Orlando Bloom, a young Will Turner. So we go on and we have Elizabeth, who retrieves Will Turner and is to collect his necklace upon his neck for payment of survival. So we go on here and we are to, of course, have uh, the Black Pearl off in the distance, and so we have the uh, Norrington and the governor and the Royal Navy spotting the Black Pearl, and that it has gone on and made its way to not attack the ship, and it's just sailing off. So the funny thing about this story is we of course have a number of people that are all saying their Black Pearl stories, and then they go on and they say it's like, well, yeah, nobody's been left alive to tell the tale of the Black Pearl. And then Jack Sparrow turns around and says, like, well, how is it that you know so much about it then, if if no one could, if no one should have been left alive to tell this tale? Oh well, gee golly, like. So we just have it to where there's like a lot of myths and legends about the Black Pearl, that a lot of it probably isn't true. Probably a lot of it is just like been made up by people who have nothing better to do. Kind of like whoever wrote this movie, who had nothing better to do. They're just like, hey, we gotta put a Pirates of the Caribbean movie together. Okay, let's stretch this story. All right, that sounds good. Uh, no offense to anybody that likes this movie. No offense. Because I know there's somebody like, I love this film. What is he saying? Ah, rah, rah, rah. This movie doesn't have a good enough story, does it? Just doesn't. So we go on and we have some time a passing, and so we of course have a much older Elizabeth Swann, who is to have her governor father, Governor Swan, go on and give her I think a European dress of sorts, for her to have to go and be kind of stretched into so tightly to the point of her not being able to breathe. Uh, we of course have Elizabeth, who of course what we were to see as flashback, Elizabeth is to see as a dream and is to wake up to then go on and get her dress being put on her, which of course is to be stretched too tightly with corsets and all kinds of things. So we go on and we have Elizabeth, who is to grab the medallion, or really in this case, this golden Aztec piece, and put it upon her neck, and then go and get this dress to be fitted upon her. So we go on and we have Elizabeth, who is going and speaking with Norrington, uh, of course, who is to be a much older guy, who instead of having his kind of brownish hair, I guess he is to have a much more whitish looking hair. It doesn't seem like this guy has aged a day since the past time till now. Like, it didn't seem like he drastically aged, grabbed a goatee or a beard or a mustache. They could have just added it in. Like, come on. Like, I'm sure they could have just grizzled this guy up a little bit, but no. Like, he doesn't look like he's any bit older, so it is what it is with this film. So, we of course go on and have Norrington, who's telling Elizabeth that it seems that she has gone on to become a very much better or proper woman, and so on and so forth, and that Norrington is interested in marrying Elizabeth. We also had at one point where we had Will Turner who was going and handing over to the governor some sword, uh, mentioning a certain kind of steel that it was made from, and that there is to be some gold upon the handle. And so the governor's like, okay, well, this is great. Like, this will be a great gift that I can go and give to somebody. So but back with Elizabeth and Norrington. So it seems that Elizabeth is having trouble breathing to the point of her going on and falling over onto the cliff, and she is falling into the water. So now let's set something else up here. So we go on and we have Jack Sparrow, who is to make his way to shore basically off hopes and dreams, because this guy is to have this very small boat that of course is sinking to the point of him just being able to get to the very top of his boat, and basically while the boat is sailing its way into, of course, this royal port, it is all of a sudden like sinking as Jack is to make his way there. And so I thought, I was like, you know what? I like that intro. Like, I like that like effect where we of course have slowly but surely Jack, as he's making his entrance, his boat is sinking. It's like, okay, like, is he gonna make it? So of course we have this like port guy who is to have Jack pay 1 shilling to have his boat be at this port. It's like, he doesn't really have much of a boat, but okay, sure. So, but we turn around and we have Jack kind of like stealing this little bag of money, anyways, and running off with it. So we go on and we have Jack Sparrow, who goes and is to go by the name supposedly of Mr. Smith, because he doesn't want to reveal what his name is. So all of a sudden Jack is going through and having these two Royal Navy guys who are of course spotting Jack here and wanting to have a conversation with him, and talk about stories of the Black Pearl. And so we have it, of course, where Jack is to want to commandeer or steal one of these boats in a desperate attempt for him to go on and try and get the fastest boat so he can try to get to the Black Pearl as quickly as he can, and possibly have to go on and get a certain number of crew so that he can make it easily with this boat. So all of a sudden, that's when, of course, we have Elizabeth, who is falling to her kerplunk, watery possible death. And so we, of course, go on and have the Royal Navy guys who are kind of dealing with Jack Sparrow and wanting to arrest him at this point, have them looking on at a fallen Elizabeth. So we go on and we have Jack, who's asking, hey, are either one of you guys going to go and save her? And so it seems like they aren't, so he goes on and jumps into the water to save, of course, Elizabeth, because I guess no one else is going to do it. So we go on and we have Jack goes and grabs Elizabeth and drags her back to shore, going on and just simply only having to rip off her corset to then give her the relief of being able to breathe. All of a sudden, it seems that there is a number of people, especially even the governor, who is to have thought that Jack was to go on and possibly grab Elizabeth inappropriately, which just isn't that true, or just isn't true at all. We also, the one thing that I forgot about, we had the interaction between Elizabeth and Will Turner, where Will was trying to be very proper and was to consistently call Elizabeth Miss Swan. And so we go on and we have Elizabeth correcting Will Turner to just tell her, it's like, tell, or for her to tell Will here that, you know what, you can just call me Elizabeth. And how many times do I have to tell you to just call me Elizabeth? And he's like, well, probably once more, Miss Swan. So we go on and we have this Aztec gold hitting the water, this medallion, this thing that Elizabeth is to have. So it seems that since this one gold piece is to have been put in the water, which had this weird ripple effect upon the water, and so the Royal Navy, like two guys are turning themselves like, hey, do you feel that? All of a sudden is going to cause the Black Pearl to make its way to this location to go after this Aztec gold that, of course, Elizabeth is to be holding around her neck, but we'll get there. So, we, of course, go on and are to have both Norrington and the governor go and kind of thank Jack Sparrow for saving Elizabeth, but then Norrington is to realize that that Mr. Smith is actually Jack Sparrow simply by an arm tattoo, and that it seems that he has gotten into trouble some time before because of like some brand upon his arm. So we of course have Norrington, who realizes that Jack Sparrow is Jack Sparrow, and that of course he is a pirate, and of course they usually like to hang pirates. So we go on here and they go on and they imprison Jack and they toss him into the brig or the prison, whatever they call it in this story. So we of course have Jack with a number of pirates just kind of desperately hoping that Jack here could have one of these guys get the key from this dog. Because we have all these pirates or all these crooks or all these thieves or whatever that are going like, hey doggy. They're trying to trigger like this dog to come over there, and Jack is like, it won't work. You guys are wasting your time. So we go on, and of course we have the Black Pearl, who is to arrive, who is to cannon its way through parts of this this place that they are to be in. So we of course have all the pirates making their way through this environment on their search to find Elizabeth, who is to have this necklace with this gold Aztec piece. So we go on and we of course have it where two pirates by the name of Ragetti and Pintle are to go on and find Elizabeth. And so weirdly, we have Elizabeth, who seems to know all the pirate rules and everything like that, knows all their codes and so on and so forth. So Elizabeth is to immediately do the one thing that is to consistently be said within this film, and Elizabeth is to call a parlay. And they're like, okay, what do you want? So Elizabeth is to want to go to their captain to speak with him and to also give him this gold piece and then possibly get her freedom out of all this. So Elizabeth is to, of course, mention that her name is Miss Turner and that, of course, she is to have been a maid of sorts uh, from this working with this family. Not, of course, being, of course, the daughter of the governor. So she lied here to just try to protect her, protect who she is, and make it seem that she's a less valuable person. So I'm like, okay. So we go on and we have, of course, this this Elizabeth and this gold being sent to, of course, a guy named Barbossa, who, of course, is to be technically the captain of the Black Pearl because Jack Sparrow is not on it, or it seems that Jack Sparrow is not running it. Because technically he is Captain Jack Sparrow of the Black Pearl, and Barbossa was actually his first mate. But all of a sudden, Barbossa was to go and call mutiny against Jack Sparrow and leave him on an island to rot for supposedly 3 days until Jack was to come up with some kind of goofy story to escape from that island, supposedly using his back hair to tie a bunch of turtles together to make his way back to shore. Weirdly. But then we end up finding out later in the film that supposedly the island he was on had a bunch of rum, and that Jack eventually was to find a way to just get off this island regardless. So, pushing on. So, Elizabeth meets with Barbossa, and so we go on and we have Elizabeth who parlays with Barbossa and is to go on and ask Barbossa how important is this piece really, as she's kind of, as Elizabeth is dangling this necklace over, almost overboard. And so Barbossa's like, hey, let's not be hasty here. Like, what do you want to get this piece? So we go on and we have, of course, Elizabeth bargaining. And so she gives them this gold piece. And then she, of course, is thinking that she is going to go back onto, or she's going to go back home and all this is going to be resolved. Whereas Barbossa is saying, well, you know what? Really, the whole parlay thing, that's just like a guideline thing. We don't really have to go on and do every single thing about that. Plus, we kind of need you anyways. Because we go on and we have Barbossa who tells this story about this Aztec gold piece that Elizabeth doesn't even know she has. So, stating that, of course, this Aztec piece was to be from this treasure from Cortez. That, I guess, this treasure was somehow cursed. And they, of course, are to find out that these people are not able to die, and that every kind of thing are shine to the moonlight upon their or upon their bodies. They are to be skeletons. And so it seems that Barbossa is to mention that once they were to start to collect these 882 pieces, and they tried to sell it, and they tried to sell it to drink, or sell it to sleep with women, or to eat any number of things, that every single one of those purchases would all backfire. And so Barbossa and all of his men was to go on and decide to desperately try and get every single one of these gold pieces back, to, of course, bring it back to the Isle of Morta. Alright, I want to double check if I'm saying that correctly. Isle of Muerta. Muerta? I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. So that way they can go on and supposedly spill the blood of a Turner to go on and end this curse finally, and possibly be able to get back to their mortal lives and be able to choose to die whenever they want to, or just have less of a burden to enjoy food and enjoy life for whatever it would go on to be. So, or whatever they need to enjoy and whatever. But anyways, pushing on. So we got that story out of the way. So we have it where, of course, both Jack, or tour Jack is going on, and once all of those, of course, cannons are to be fired into this island, or this place where, of course, the governor and his men are to be kind of be, or at, or whichever. So we unfortunately have it to where Jack cannot get out of his own prison, and so we, of course, have Jack desperately trying to figure out some way to get out of his cell, as coincidentally some other people that were in jail could easily get out of it because a cannon had fired into one of their walls, knocking it down, having one guy saying that Jack Sparrow must not be all that lucky. So Jack is coming up with some kind of trick to try to get out of this prison, and so Jack, of course, when he was to go on and try to escape once before, he was to go on and bump into Will Turner, going on and trying to see how skilled he was at sword fighting, as Jack, of course, was to get cuffed, and he goes on into this blacksmithing place to go and break out of those cuffs, and is to go on and fight Will Turner, just to turn around and have this Royal Navy go and find Jack Sparrow, of course, and arrest him again and throw him in prison. And, of course, Will Turner is to get absolutely zero credit for them going and finding Jack Sparrow, because they go on and just give Will Turner's boss all of the credit, his blacksmith, just because he arrived at the last second to just go on and knock out Jack Sparrow with this glass bottle. So we have Will Turner realizing that Elizabeth is in danger and that she needs Will's help. So Will goes on and is to decide to partner up with Jack Sparrow to go and find some ship, so that way, since Will and Jack kind of have the same mission in mind, and that Jack Sparrow is to use Will against, of course, Barbossa and all these other men. Jack and Will come to some agreement to go on and do this mission to go and help out Elizabeth. So we go on and we have, of course, Will, who uses this bench to get Jack out of prison. And so they both go on and are to scramble into some boat where the interceptor is to try to intercept this boat, and it goes on to have all of these Royal Navy characters go and scramble upon this other boat for both Jack and Will to scramble onto the interceptor and have this boat already be prepared to sail off. And so Jack is thanking the Royal Navy for preparing this whole boat, because Jack wouldn't have been able to take the time needed to have prepared a boat to go off to sail. So, because there was only 2 people. So now we consistently have Will, who's kind of fighting the fact that his father was technically a pirate. Because Jack is to tell, of course, Will the truth about his father, and that his father was, of course, a pirate. And because Will is trying so much so to say that he is to, of course, not be a pirate, and he is to be like a guy that is just trying to do a good deed. And so we go on and we still have both Will and Jack kind of at odds with one another, to the point of Will almost wanting to sword fight Jack again via the ship, but we of course have Jack, who is to kind of adjust this sail to where it smacks Will and is to almost toss him, or is to almost have him kind of fall off to the side of this boat here. And so Jack and Will are to come to this agreement yet again for Jack and Will to work together, to just be like, okay, hey, like like let's kind of forget like who we really are and for a moment here, and let's go on and just think what the real goal is here. So because Jack is thinking that he can easily drop Will into this water here and think nothing of it and just be like, okay, but Jack realizes that he can't do this whole boat himself and that he needs Will's help. So, like, hey, truce. So, we then have both of them decide that they are going to need to go to a place called Tortuga, which is a very wild and just place that is just really just scary. Scary place! Like, when going in there, we just see a number of people who are just, like, beating one another to death, like, all the time. And all of a sudden we have Jack, who's kind of walking into Tortuga, and a bunch of women are just slapping him. And he's like, well, I think I deserve that. No, I don't think I deserve that. Well, I think I... So, like, the jokes are kind of repetitive here. So we of course go on, and the main character that we are to meet up with here is Gibbs, who of course is to have, I guess, fallen asleep drunk right next to a bunch of pigs. So we go on and we have Jack, who's splashing water upon Gibbs here to wake him up. And then Will is to toss another barrel of water on Gibbs, and Gibbs is saying, "Hey, like I'm already awake." And they're like, "Yeah, but you smell." So like we had to splash some water on you because of the smell. And Gibbs is like, "Oh, okay." So we have Gibbs going on and easily wanting to work with these guys, because we will find out that Gibbs is to kind of be like the best friend of Jack Sparrow if Jack Sparrow doesn't even have anybody to really work under. So we go on and have Gibbs mentioning that he'll soon go on and find a number of people for Jack's crew, and Jack's like, well, great. So we go on, and the very next day we have a number of people that, of course, Gibbs is to find. It seems that we have one guy who can't speak because his tongue is cut out, but weirdly, we had a parrot that talks for this guy, and I'm like, okay, why do we spend so much time on this character? Because this character has no real importance. But then we go on to Anna Maria, who of course is to be the female pirate in this movie, I guess, or the female crew member that of course is Zoe from like Avatar, and Uhura from the newer Star Trek movies, whatever the newer, like the God, what is it, the Chris Pine, God, what is the other guy, Zachary Quinto Star Trek, that version. So we have, of course, Anna Maria, who goes on and slaps Jack because she has a problem with him. And so we, of course, have now the joke where Will's like, well, I'm sure you deserve that one. It's like, meh. So we go on and we have all these guys go onto this boat. They sail away. So we had the moment where, of course, Norrington was going on and kind of making fun of Jack Sparrow's stuff, mentioning that he had a compass that doesn't exactly point north, and that he had a 50-50 kind of thought process, thinking that Jack probably had a wooden sword. And so we go on and we have Norrington, who's saying that Jack Sparrow is possibly the worst pirate he has ever seen. But then later and later, we go on and have them like change perspective, that Jack Sparrow may quite possibly be the best pirate they've ever seen. So now we, of course, have Jack, who is to use this compass to go and find where they, of course, are supposed to go. Because we have both Jack Sparrow and we have both Barbossa going to the same location, which is to basically be, of course, the Isle of Murta. Murta? The Isle of Murta. So we, of course, go on here and we have Barbossa going and offering Elizabeth a number of food, and going on and telling her the story of Cortez and all this stuff, and that they'll be spilling her blood. And so we go on to this isle, and so we, of course, have it where Barbossa is to take his men and is trying to lift this curse. And so they, of course, cut the girl's hand and go and drop the last piece of gold. And they think, oh, how do we know if this curse is lifted or not? And so they go on, and we have Barbossa, who of course shoots Pintle to realize that no, Curse hasn't lifted yet. So we all of a sudden have Will and Jack who are kind of sneaking into this place, hoping they can figure out how to help out Elizabeth, as Will is to grab Elizabeth and to try to kind of sneak out of here, where we all of a sudden have Jack Sparrow bumping into a bunch of the Barbossa's men who used to be his, but alas, the whole mutiny whole thing. So we of course have Jack Sparrow, who's having trouble saying the word parlay. He's going on and saying every single P word that's in the dictionary, I guess, in his own mind, where he's like, or he's going on like prairie, and he starts rattling off all these P words, and they're like, well, let me guess, parlay. And he's like, yep. So we go on and we have Jack Sparrow who's talking to Barbossa, and so we of course realize that that Bootstraps Bill is like, okay, I was trying to come up with the name. I guess had cursed Barbossa and all of his men. And so now all these guys need to do is get the blood, technically, of Bootstrap's Bill, which is to be Will Turner's blood. So Jack is to go on and correct Barbossa and his men. And so Jack is to have a thing, of course, to say he has the descendant of Bootstrap Bill's lineage or blood or whatever. So Jack can go on and correct this curse and help them. And so we go on here, and we of course have it where let me try to say this out correctly. Let me pause here for 1 second. All right. So we go on, and we of course have both Will and Elizabeth trying to leave via with the interceptor ship. And so we go on and of course have them try to like scramble off here, and so that because Will's only mission was to protect Elizabeth, and so we go on and we have Will who is bandaging up Elizabeth's hand, and we of course have a moment where Elizabeth is giving back Will the last Aztec gold piece, and Will's like, oh my god, I thought I lost this, and she's like, no. So and then Elizabeth goes and explains to Will what this piece is, and like what had happened to it, and so on and so forth. And so Will's like, oh, okay. So we of course have the Black Pearl go after this ship, and of course is to try and attack it, try to board it, so that way they can go and get Will, and also try to get the last Aztec gold piece. So we of course have Gibbs trying to get everything out of this ship, and so that way they can probably collect some speed, but it seems that they also need to defend themselves. And so it seems like since they dumped probably I don't know how many cannonballs and whatever. They have to go on and just pack the cannons with a bunch of silverware and fire off silverware. So we of course have Jack that is now in the brig of the Black Pearl because they just don't trust him. So we of course have Jack that is desperately telling these guys, it's like, well, hey, like, stop firing on my ship. So we of course have it where uh, Jack is going to eventually figure out how to get out of this prison cell because the cannon that had blown past had of course gave him the ability to escape this cell. So we of course go on here and have it where Will is desperately going after his gold Aztec piece. And so while doing that, while trying to retrieve it, all of a sudden he's down underneath the boat, and the boat is starting to sink, and he is too almost drowned, desperately having Elizabeth trying to figure out a way to get to him, and of course she does. So of course, Will has to make it out of here. Because he's in every other Pirates of the Caribbean movie. So, we finally go on and we, of course, do a number of things here. We have it where we have like another arrangement where Will, because considering he has the blood here, he has the gold piece, we of course have him do another kind of arrangement with Barbossa where he is of course putting a gun to his neck saying that his blood is valuable. So Will is now saying that he wants both uh, Elizabeth free and the crew free, which the crew just ends up in a prison cell, and Elizabeth just gets kind of shoved off to this island, as well as Jack does also. So we go on and we have these guys going back to this same island, this island of Muerta. So now both Elizabeth and Jack are trying to figure out some way, well, really just Elizabeth is. Jack doesn't really care at this point. Elizabeth is wanting to figure out how Jack was to escape before. And so Jack is to say, it's like, well, hey, I had like a pretty good supply of rum and food. And so, like, basically, I just waited for some miracle to happen. And Elizabeth is like, seriously? Like, that's all you did for 3 days? Is just kind of wait for something to happen? And Jack's like, yep. So we, of course, have Elizabeth, who is to be a lot more desperate than Jack is. And so she goes on and she's trying as best as possible to just start a massive forest fire. And so she's hoping that this forest fire is going to cause some signal for people to be interested in helping them. And Jack, of course, is very upset at this point because she's going on and burning all of these supplies. So, as of last night, when both of them were kind of exchanging these stories and talking about things and so on and so forth, so we, of course, now have the Royal Navy going and spotting both Elizabeth and Jack, with, of course, the governor on this boat also. So we have the Royal Navy scoop these two characters up, and so now we have it to where these guys are to not really have any interest to go to this Isle of Muerta. So we of course have it to where Elizabeth is desperate to have them go there, and Elizabeth is mentioning to Norrington that this will be the gift of their wedding for Elizabeth to just do, or Norrington to just do what Elizabeth wants. And so we of course have the governor that's asking Elizabeth, it's like, seriously? So you'll marry him? And so of course we have the Royal Navy who goes on to this island and is to now gonna go on and try to fight Barbossa's men. And so we of course have Jack Sparrow going on, and before all of these men are to make it to, of course, this island, we have Jack going and meeting with Barbossa and telling him what's going on, because Jack is to be desperate to want to get one of these gold pieces and take it, so that way he can become immortal so no one can kill him for this temporary time. So we of course have it where Jack is going and telling these guys about the Royal Navy coming, and so we of course have Barbossa's men who are going off as skeletons into the night to go on and attack the Royal Navy and intercept them and kill most of them off because they're undead anyways. So we go on and have at one point where the governor is fighting with his hand in some room somewhere in this ship, and desperately putting this hand into some drawer and trying to like hold off to have this hand no longer attack the governor. So we have it where eventually Jack and Barbossa are continue to fight on and on and on because they're undead anyways. And so when Barbossa is to stab into Jack, we realize that Jack is already an undead character, and so Jack is to play with the of course gold Aztec piece as if it's like a cold trickle kind of thing, where he's kind of messing with his kind of fingers with it. And he's like, well, like, you seriously thought that I wasn't gonna have like fun with this? So we go on and we have, of course, Elizabeth and Will and Jack trying to fight off Barbossa's men, but it's really just like it's fun, but there's not much that they can really do to just like these guys are undead. So what ends up happening towards the end of this, because let's get to the real meat and potatoes of all this, we go on and of course we have Will, who is to turn in all of the gold pieces into this chest, and so Jack is able to fire into Barbossa's chest and actually kill him, because of course he can, because now all the gold pieces are inside this chest. So now that Barbossa is now dead, we of course have Jack easily having the ability to man the Black Pearl. We have, of course, the Gibbs and all the other people that were kind of able to get out of the Black Pearl, or out of the Interceptor, went on to go into Black Pearl, and it seems like they were supposed to do some stuff that Elizabeth wanted, but they were like, well, we don't have to do any of that. We don't have to help Jack. We don't have to do anything. So, but they went on, and so they help out Jack later, we'll just say. So, Uh, I am so tired now. Anyway, it's just a long stretch of a day. And I haven't even done the normal amount of work and stuff and whatever, but I'm just blah. So so now that everything is settled and we go on, and of course, um, the Royal Navy is to go and collect Jack Sparrow and Will Turner, Elizabeth, and so we turn around here and we have Jack who's being hung, still of course for being a pirate and all the bad deeds that he had gone on and done. But Will Turner is to go and save him, go and toss this sword so that way Jack does not get hung here. Because technically, Will is to try to do the right deed and is to also realize that he is to be a pirate. So, we of course have both Will and both Jack who are using these ropes to go and trip up the Royal Navy, and so Elizabeth is to go and try to stop all these Royal Navy men from going and killing both Will and both Jack by having Elizabeth saying that she loves Will and she would much rather marry Will than marry Norrington. So now we have the governor who is finally just like, you know what? Instead of just having us do the normal thing with normal laws and whatever, how about for one time we just go and we just go into piracy ourselves. We just kind of do whatever we want. So the governor is going on and just saying like, you know what? Let's just kind of drop everything. So we of course have it where Will is to not be imprisoned for anything, and because lovebirds and so on and so forth. We of course have Jack Sparrow who is to jump from this cliff to make it to the water, for him to then get roped up by the Black Pearl men, and for him to make it onto that ship. So of course we have one of the Royal Navy men who's asking Norrington, "Hey, what should we do about Jack Sparrow?" And he of course goes on and is to just say like, "Well, we'll just give him a day start and then we'll go after him. We'll chase after him then." And I'm like, oh, okay, so like I guess we are going to do the right thing, but not today. Uh, so with that said, that just kind of wraps everything up, and really everybody has a happy ending. And so really at the very end of this movie, we go on and have an end credit scene where we have that monkey who's also named Jack, who is to go on and steal one of the gold Aztec pieces and be this still kind of undead monkey that is just have one last scare for us at the end of this film. So, with that said, I think I'm getting out of here. I didn't go into heavily detail about this one just because I was kind of like, man, I'm kind of I need to call it a day. Plus, I think I'm just worn out and whatever. Um, Plus, this is like a 2.5 hour movie. Uh, it's 2 hour and 25, but still. Um, so yeah, man. And I realized that also I didn't get to as many videos as I would have wanted today as I would have wanted to, but oh well. Because technically I was going to do another one after this, but I'm like, oh my god, I'm just so freaking exhausted. So with that said, I'm going to get out of here. Thank you for watching this. Thank you for watching any of these. Thank you. I really do appreciate it. Uh, we'll see if any of these are actually Pirates of the Caribbean or interesting to anybody. And so, yeah. With that said, I'm going to get out of here. I probably didn't go into much specifics about this one than I would normally, but mm, you know, there's a lot of downtime in this film. There's a lot of battles in this movie. Um, I think at one point we had uh, Jack, who is to go on and retrieve the gold coin, the monkey Jack, retrieve the gold coin and be back onto Barbossa's ship. But here's the thing: either way, they still needed Will uh, on that ship. They still needed to retrieve Will, and so Will still had a bargaining chip to play here because really Will is to find out that his father's blood that is coursing inside of his veins is to be the key to, of course, Barbossa's freedom. So yeah, so that's all I want to say here. I think that's pretty much it for this one. We also had that one funny moment where we had the two guys that were going on and dressing up as women, as like a Trojan horse kind of thing, where like the Royal Navy was kind of checking on these two supposed girls in this boat to go on and have them realize like, oh, those are just one of those undead guys. They're just weirdly wearing uh, skirts. Like, oh, okay, like we spend so much time kind of really following uh, these girls to just have it all be a ruse. So yeah, I think that's it. I think that's all I want to say. Uh, we of course had the one guy who was mentioning about like his glass eye and how it like really is to irritate him, and that they're hoping that they can go on and get a better glass eye for this guy. So, and I know I've said his name before, but I completely forgot what it is now. Plus, I got rid of the IMDb. So yeah, because I feel like I've kind of talked about everything or covered everything. So with that said, I think I'm going to cover my way out of here. Bye, everybody. Bye, everybody. Probably tomorrow I'm going to go on and there's probably going to be a lot of TV shows that I'm probably going to be covering. So might get an extra tweak of a movie or something like that to cover, so I can kind of get some extra stuff, hopefully. So with that said, I think I'm going to get out of here. Bye, everybody. Bye, everybody. Yeah, I apologize. This one wasn't as in detail as I normally would do, but yeah, like who knows? Maybe a soul will watch this and they're like, well, I guess that equals the effort of which I put into this one. Um, but yeah, let me know in the comments below how you feel about Pirates of the Caribbean. I'm gonna get out of here. Bye, everybody. Bye, everybody.